Mm-hmm.
Guru Nation, welcome to episode 182 of Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. I'm Dan. I'm with the Chris Auber. We're enjoying our Chris Auber sponsored Kirkland Raspberry Green Teas. It's very good. We're doing a podcast on, and there's a lot we can cover here. But it's for site owners.
Site owners.
Or wannabe site owners. Or current site owners. Or, yeah. Right? So it's the definition of right now. Or soon. I guess soon is better. Soon defined by a sponsor and CRO versus soon defined by a site versus soon defined by somebody who hasn't even opened a site yet.
Okay.
Three very different definitions.
Well,
We hear this all the time from a sponsor. We're starting the study soon. Well, then newbies get excited. And they're like, yes, I'm going to have a new study very soon. But soon for them means they got to pay their rent, their electricity,
sure.
their payroll, all in the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
Sponsor, when they say soon, they're thinking so long term. It might be next year. It really might.
I don't know if I've seen that, but yes, it's much longer than a lot of times those who are receiving the message anticipate.
What have been your experiences with this?
Oh, it's all over the place, right?
Of course, some of them actually do start up soon, and that's
Right.
usually add-on sites. So we
Well-
can get into that, but go ahead and give us your take.
Well, I think it says with any bureaucracy, right? When you have many different levels of human beings that are involved, sometimes things kind of grind slowly, right? They happen very slowly. My best, the best way I could refer to this is my experience with budgets and contracts, right? Not necessarily when is the study starting, but just once you have the study, negotiating those items, right? The budgets and contracts.
Yeah.
And I've literally had to wait upwards of 2 months just to get a response, right? Where you get the initial contract or budget, respond to them, and I don't get a response for 2 months. And then I'll send reminder emails, hey, have you received my email? And they'll write back, yes, I'll get to it soon.
So what does that mean? Soon.
2 months, sometimes 3. One budget in particular.
For a budget.
Right, started in February, this is recent, started in February. There was only 3, maybe 4 emails back and forth. And it didn't get resolved until 2 weeks ago. It started in February.
Yeah, see these sponsors definitions, and now that we're dabbling in the CRO world and the sponsor world at some point, hopefully.
Yeah, even in our own experience, we can see this.
In our own study,
How things move so slowly.
we have promised people jobs. We should call them gigs because they're part time.
Right.
And I've told 2 people it's starting soon. Don't worry, your gig is starting soon.
And soon was when
A
you
year
stated
ago.
this, yeah, a long time ago.
Almost a year ago. No, not quite a year ago, but yeah. It was, and it's about
Months
to
ago.
happen.
Months ago.
And it's finally now in August, about to start up soon.
Right.
But closer to our definition
But
of soon.
soon could still be a while.
Yeah, but it seems like they're getting everything ready now.
But it's still slow. Like, a good example, I sent an email, this is in regards to the study we're working on, as the CRO. I sent an email, I don't know if you saw it, to the EDC vendor, asking, this was last week, a week ago. I think it was Tuesday last week, right?
They didn't get back.
And they have yet to get back to me.
And that's one of the biggest reasons for, in this particular study, the delay was this EDC vendor is just extremely slow. I mean, they were building the database from scratch.
Yeah, for a year.
And it's not like it was a complicated database. And by the way, any future sponsors or biotechs watching, we did not select this vendor, okay? The sponsor chose
Oh
it.
yes, please, no,
Yeah.
yeah, this was not our mistake.
This is not on us.
It was already chosen before we were even involved.
Thank you. That's a disclaimer we get. You don't know who's watching
Right, I
or
agree.
listening.
I
Or
agree.
listening.
Great.
So we just gotta put our best foot forward. Don't want to give the wrong impression of people.
Right.
So yeah, it's gonna start soon, Chris. Hopefully.
Soon could be another year.
Now, we take calls. So if you're a site owner that's already has a site, you probably have learned this throughout the years, through experience. When a sponsor says we're starting a new study soon, or you hear from a CRA. Usually how it works is you hear from one of your CRAs on an ongoing study. Hey, the sponsor's rolling out a new protocol soon, and you guys just want to let you know you guys are going to be considered.
Right.
Right? So it tends to get everyone excited, but that may not actually be soon the way you are looking at soon.
Oh yeah, best example I think I could give of something like that would be, we had a site selection visit at South Coast, and I was over at the other location. And we had a site selection visit, and we were chosen to participate on the study. And this was at startup. This wasn't like an add-on site, right? We went to the investigator meeting, right? We were chosen 2 years later.
Right. And the sponsor thought that was soon.
Yeah.
So, and here's another thing when it comes to getting paid. Like, let's say you already have been selected, like the example you brought up earlier with the contract on budget.
Mm-hmm.
An inexperienced site owner would think, okay, we got the study, we're doing the contract on budget, we're gonna have the SIV soon, and then we're gonna start screening patients soon after that.
Yeah.
And before you know it, it's like 6 to 12 months go by.
Yep.
And then they think that they're gonna get paid soon after that.
Yeah. None of this is soon by standard definition.
So the lesson for site owners is just constantly get more studies, even if your pipeline is looking good, because you don't know what's going to happen to that pipeline. Study delays happen a lot, as we see on a small scale with our examples of the CRA project we have. Study delays are common. They're the norm. A delayed study is the default.
But not always, right?
No, it's the default.
Right, but not always. There's exceptions to all rules, and so there is in the industry as well. Some sponsors work quickly. Some.
The only time it's quick is if you're an add-on site and the sponsor is already up and running. There's already sites screening. They're in the maybe halfway point of the study, and they need rescue sites to come on. Then they'll get you up quickly. Because they need you at that point.
Okay, I would agree with that. Certainly that happens more quickly than pretty much anything else that happens in this industry. But there's one sponsor in particular that once they contact you about doing a site selection visit, you're almost always screening patients within 2 months that I've worked with often. I'll even say their name because it's a positive. So Neurocrine's really good about that. Right? But they're smaller. They're a smaller biotech.
But they're quick.
Yeah.
So when they say soon, what does that mean?
That means it's relative, within the standard definition, I would say.
And what is the standard?
I don't know, somebody says soon, you would expect within a couple of weeks, and I would say that's relatively accurate.
Yeah, that's about accurate. And that's what most people think, like site owners, when they're looking to get studies. One of the first things that, well, we'll get into that, but for the add-on sites, that's when it will be relatively quick, for the most part. So in those cases, just make sure that you're not the bottleneck, the site, as far as responding to your startup regulatory, your trainings, which poor Monica's doing now.
Sure.
For our other site, she's doing trainings right now, like tons of trainings. GCP, rating, assessments, all kinds of stuff. So it's a lot of work, and we already have been awarded the study. We've already had our SIV. We're just waiting to get all this stuff out of the way so we can start screening. And now we also have to rely on the vendors to send the drug,
Oh, sure.
the lab kits. There's a lot of moving parts, different vendors. So even if we would be finished, doesn't mean we're necessarily going to start screening.
Sure.
And guess what? That's the most challenging part of research, is actually screening the patients and finding the patients. So be careful when you hear the word soon, or when you're awarded a study, or when you had a good site selection visit, or even when you had a SIV. Because you may not start screening as quickly as you anticipate.
And then on top of that, once you do start screening, it's a ways in time until you get paid.
Now to get paid, and they use the word soon a lot also.
Yeah. So, to the sponsors and CROs, so a good way around upsetting your sites, right, would be to give definitive dates you can stick to, right? Instead of saying something like soon or some ambiguous date, right? You could say, we will certainly be screening patient, first patient screened, and we will meet that date, right? Something like that.
And just for the sites, as a good guard or defense against that, it's really just to fill up your pipeline and get more studies. We always tell clients, take on more studies than you think you can take. You never know what's going to happen. We just had a guy, actually in our Site Owner Academy, he was asking, he mentioned that he got another study that's very similar to one he already has. Should he take it?
Right.
And the answer should always be yes. Always.
Yep.
Unless you can't get any patients for that study.
Right.
Which is not the case with them. So that's soon. Now, we take calls from people that haven't started their sites, but want to start their sites. These are coordinators that want to go out on their own, start their own clinics. CRAs, and I use the air quotes.
And why do you use the air quotes?
Some of these people, and you know why.
I do know why, but for the audience that can't see you.
Some of these people...
With the expression on your face.
Some of these people say that they're CRAs, and then you get into, for example, what a site selection visit is. And it's like you're speaking another language. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes, you do.
And these people actually are CRAs, which is the scary thing. So maybe we can unpack something there. And I'm trying to play devil's advocate. We're actually talking about this in the morning. I think this is what the original podcast topic was going to be. But we can incorporate it into this because it applies.
Okay.
I've been a site owner, or at the site level, since 2005. Still am. That will never end, no matter what I do. If we end up owning biotechs, mega CRO, we're still going to have our sites. Right? God willing. The last 2 years, I've been dabbling in monitoring. Independent contract gigs. Right? Very easy travel. No travel. They're all local to me. Right? So I've experienced being a CRA, but I also have site experience, like more site experience. So to me, when it comes to preparing for a site selection visit as a site, I mean, to me, it's like second nature. Like, these are the things you need. You need to talk about your patient recruitment capabilities. But you get some of these CRAs that have never worked at the site level.
Right.
That start their own clinics. But they've done tons of site selection visits on their own as monitors. But now you're asking them to be on the other end of that table as a site owner or site director or study coordinator. And they freak out. And I'm trying to understand why, because this is not just one or two people.
No, it's all of them.
This is like half a dozen, if not more.
Yeah, it's all of them.
Right? And so I think it can be, because being a monitor, so as a site owner, and this is why I think starting out as a coordinator is the most versatile thing you can do if you want to enter this industry, because you learn a lot more about the research, the process.
You learn a little bit about everything.
You become more of a generalist and less of a specialist.
Right.
And I think with CRAs, they're just specialists to the max. Like, all they do is look at their reports, At least that's what I've been doing as a CRA. I go to the site. I know what's going on at the site, but I don't necessarily care because I need to finish my report.
Right.
So the only thing that matters is my report. Obviously, we're looking out for patient safety and making sure the protocol is being followed, but that's basic stuff.
Right.
I'm looking at my report. I'm very focused, so I'm not being a generalist right now. Let's get this thing done and let me get out of here. If that is all you do every single day for years, it's very easy to be blind to everything else that is occurring. Even if you're doing the site selection visit as the CRA, you're not even necessarily listening maybe to what the person
It's
is
like a
telling you.
tedious task which you have down,
Yes.
and you're just doing it. It's like automated.
You're just asking questions, and we've had monitors do site selection visits where it looks like they're sleepwalking, right? I mean, isn't that like most of them?
Yeah, probably.
They're here, they sit there, and they just go through their report. Now I know what they're doing. When I first started, I had no clue what they're doing.
Right.
Now I know they're just, all they do is nothing fancy. They have their monitoring report, and they're going through everything and then finishing the report. So they're asking you stuff, you're giving answers, and they're just typing it. They're not really thinking about what you're saying.
Right.
So I think that is why CRAs, when they're asked to be site owners, or first of all, no one's asking them to be site
Well,
owners.
it
They're
should
asking themselves
Right.
to do it.
Right.
But when they're asked to be representing the site at a site selection visit and not the CRO, it's like a fish out of water.
They haven't digested all those answers they've received over the years, so
Right.
now they have nothing to call on.
It's the only theory I've thought of so far that makes sense to me.
Very robotic.
Yeah. Do you think that's has any merit?
Plausible, but
So why do you think that's the case?
I think it's more because and we've discussed this before, there's more sales involved in being a site owner, whereas being a CRA, there's no sales, right? You have your job, you receive a paycheck, somebody's paying you. This is a completely different, you're looking at the same thing, a study, but it's a completely different way to look at it, right? I have to sell myself and my site, opposed to I'm just doing something I'm paid to be doing. So
Yeah.
there's a concern here about selling myself and my site, opposed to just doing my job.
Right.
I think it's more concerned about the sales aspect. That's what I think.
Sales aspect, yeah.
Where people are just not confident in their salesmanship.
Good point, and we're going to get back to that. Remember that for the last 5 minutes, I want to expand on that.
Sure.
But I want to bring this back home with this concept of soon. So, to add to my theory of CRAs are just, when they're monitoring, they're just being very robotic, and then so when they have to be on the other side of the table as a study coordinator or a site director, they have to use different part of their brain, right? And they may have problems reacting quickly.
I just don't think human beings can possibly be that robotic. I mean, maybe a few, but we've
Right.
experienced this with too many people that all have the same issues.
Yeah.
I just think it's lack of confidence.
Lack of confidence. Another thing it could be, it's rare when the monitor that does your SSV, it's rare that they end up being your real monitor.
It happens, but yeah.
It's rare.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, the person doing an SSV is another specialist.
Right.
So maybe some of these CRAs, they've done SSVs years ago, but now they've graduated to doing the actual monitoring, and they only get involved at the SAV.
Right.
Right? Like they'll get trained on the protocol, but they basically are given their sites and the study is starting.
Mm-hmm.
So they have no concept of this soon thing for sites.
Mm-hmm.
Like to them it is soon.
Mm-hmm.
They got assigned to a study, now they got to do all these SIVs.
Right.
But they don't see all the back end work. You know how many months that took to get that site to that point?
Well,
And
from
they don't know
CDA to site initiation visit can be
From
could be
CDA
years.
to feasibility, let's go even before CDA, reaching out to sponsors to get the CDA.
Right.
Then the feasibility, then the SSV,
Mm-hmm.
then all the startup stuff. And now SIV is when the real CRA gets involved.
Right.
So they're not seeing all this other stuff. It could be a year of work.
Yeah.
So when they go start a site, they must be thinking, well, as soon as I get a study, I'm going to do a feasibility.
Yeah.
They'll come do
I'm
SSV.
rolling. I'm going.
Yeah, and then right after that, they'll do SIV, and that's not the way it works most of the time.
Right.
Just because you did well in SSV doesn't mean you're going to start screening right away. Right?
Yeah.
Even though the sponsor says we'll get you screening soon, they're not speaking the same language. So that's another theory added to that. Because think about it. It's very rare that the CRA that does the site selection visit, unless it's with a small sponsor, is the same one that's going to monitor your study.
Yeah, I would agree.
And most of the CRAs that are our clients have worked for the big CROs.
Right.
So typically they haven't done an SSV in a while if they're senior. Most of the CRAs that want to open their own sites are senior.
Right.
So it must have been 5 years ago or longer
Right.
that they've done their last site selection visit as a CRA.
Yeah, all true.
Right? So I have more empathy for them. As a CRA myself, I've only done one site selection visit. No, we've done one with our CRO as well.
We've done 4 or 5.
We've done one in person, or I've done 2 in person,
3.
and 3 on the phone.
You've done 3 in person, I think.
Oh yeah, because
I've done 2 in person.
Okay, if you've done 2 in person, I did 1 more.
Right.
But then all my other visits have been SIVs and interim monitoring visits. So if that was everything that I knew about site dynamics and how quickly things happen, I would be in for a rude awakening when I actually start my own clinic and see that that's not the case. So that's my theory.
Could
I
be
think it's a good
legitimate.
one. I think someone needs to do a study on this theory.
Study on a study.
How do we do this? How do we most importantly, how do we monetize this study? We can sell it to pharma. Hey, all your CRAs are leaving and starting their own clinics.
Yeah. How do you stop this?
Do you think it's a good thing that so many CRAs are wanting to start their own clinics?
Well, there's a fairly large turnover rate as a CRA, and it's just because of the workload.
They're not treated very well.
Well, I mean, they're treated well in terms of pay, right?
Pay and benefits, yeah.
So and they're paid so well because this is known going in. You're going to work hard, right? So if the job were easy, they'd get paid half as much or even less.
Right, but do you think, so you're not answering my question, do you think it's good that these CRAs, or more CRAs are, it's not like every CRA is starting their own site.
Yeah, I started to answer the question. So
yeah,
again,
you're like the sales lady from Indeed.
quite irritating me.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so there's a large turnover rate because of the workload. People get burnt out, right? I don't think that can be, I don't know how you would stop that, right? Hire more CRAs, so...
They don't want to hire research-naive CRAs.
Well,
so one strategy is to bring on the coordinators.
But they're starting to do that, right?
They're starting to bring on coordinators.
Well, not only that, but there was one of our students had just said that they've noticed that they're dropping it down to a year or close to 2 years.
Right,
of
I'm seeing that too. And it used to say 2 years or more.
Right, now it's a year.
Now it's saying for many of these positions, because some still have that 2 years.
Sure.
But many of these now, the more entry-level ones, are saying 1 year or less.
Well, I think that the reasons are twofold, right? So one is I think there's a lot more studies right now, so they need more employees. Also, as with always, CRAs get burnt out and they move on.
They move on to other companies.
Or start their own site.
Start their own sites, become consultants, or a little bit of all of the above.
Yep.
Or just retire completely.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, so again, is it good?
Is it
For
good?
the industry? Or I think it's negligible.
I think there's pros and cons.
I don't think it's an epidemic of CRAs quitting. I mean, we'd be hearing about it.
I think there's pros and cons, right? I mean, obviously you have to retrain new employees, so that's gone, right? But I think the pro to new CRAs are, I think new CRAs are a little bit more diligent in their work. I think, right? That they pay more attention to what they're doing.
Right.
They work harder initially.
Right.
They're not just, I gotta get this done, I gotta submit a report and get out of here, I do what the minimum is to get this done.
Yes.
Whereas new CRAs they go the extra mile.
This person will remain nameless, but one of our clients I talked to yesterday, not yesterday, I'm getting the days all mixed up. Last week,
Mm-hmm.
you know her,
Okay.
very nice. She's a CRA, and
Okay.
she's now been a site owner for about a year.
Okay.
The business has been self-sustaining for the last 4 months. Okay, but she's now trying to get to that next level where she can pay herself, all that stuff, right?
Mhm.
But I asked her, because she's still full-time CRA,
Right.
are you, now that you've been a site owner for a year, when you monitor your sites as a CRA, do you have a different perspective? And she says, oh, absolutely. I am looking at things I've never looked at before. This is when I started formulating my hypothesis,
Mhm.
which I think there's a lot to it.
Sure.
I'm now looking at everything I have been ignoring in the past, and I'm asking them questions. And they don't know I'm a site owner, but I'm just like,
That's for her own information as
Yeah.
a site owner, right?
yeah.
Okay.
And she got by her job as a CRA for 10 years
Without knowing any of this.
without doing any of that.
Right.
So being a robot, just
Mhm.
filling out a report, I don't care what you say. My lead CRA is going to ask further questions if they have an issue with it, but this is what the site told me, this is what I'll put. No thinking as to why that's either a good or bad response,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I'm oversimplifying, I'm sure they do, but
Mhm.
we're not here to offend CRAs.
Right.
But for the most part, that's how they do their job, right?
Sure.
That's how I do mine as a CRA.
Yeah.
And I am a site owner. And I ignore all that stuff because I need to get my report done.
Right. Get the job done. I'm expected to have this report done. Let's get it done and get out of here.
Right. So, CRAs opening their own sites, negligible effect on the industry so far. Because there hasn't been that many. If these videos keep getting out.
Yeah, you never know.
Now, is it always a good idea? Are you guaranteed success if you're a CRA that now starts a site?
Of course not.
Why?
Well, I mean, there's a number of reasons,
We
right?
come back to sales.
So, well, let's just start with the facts. 80% of all new businesses fail, right?
Facts don't matter, it's 2018.
No, they don't.
No.
Oh.
Yes, they do.
Oh.
I'm just kidding.
So, fake news?
Fake news.
Okay. Well, that's not fake. 80%.
Okay, say it again.
80% of all new businesses fail within the first 2 years, right? And that's probably no different for site owners, right?
And it's funny you mentioned that. I'm listening to a book called Angel.
Mm-hmm.
It's written by one of the greatest angel investors of all time, Jason Calacanis.
Okay, never heard of him, but okay.
Right. Most people haven't. The reason I'm listening to it is because we're doing all these investor pitches now with
Right.
our biotech.
So looking for some
startup.
insight.
I'm looking to see how they think, and he brought up this stat too. Actually, listened to it on the way up here, and he said, yeah, 80% fail in the first 2 years. The reason is often not money.
Really? I thought I'd read that is the
Nope.
main cause.
He said the reason is often not money. It's usually the founder gives up. This is very much related to what is soon.
Sure.
Because if you go in thinking something's going to happen a lot faster than it does,
Right.
and there's a certain rule in business, it's unofficial, it's anecdotal, whatever. Take my word on it. Anything you do as a business owner
It takes a while to monetize.
is 10 times, takes 10 times more effort than you planned. Anything. You want to build a website? Be my guest. You think you can do it in a day? I don't think so.
Well, you could.
If you know nothing about it,
Okay. Sure.
right?
Sure.
Like just, and it's probably not 10 times, but you get my point.
Yeah, more difficult than anticipated.
Everything,
Sure.
especially as a startup.
Certainly most everything.
And the founders quit. And they say, you know what, I'll go back to my CRA job.
Right.
Why do I need to do this?
Well, I think human nature, I think as human beings, most, if not almost all, are conservative by nature in terms of not wanting to learn new things. They find learning new things to be difficult, right?
Yeah.
When you're moving away from what you know into the unknown, most human beings don't care for that, right? And that's what's happening as we're talking to these CRA clients. they're moving into the unknown, and they have
Right.
a lot of questions that,
But it's the most dangerous kind of unknown because they think that they do know.
right,
And as we've laid out here, you often don't know it all because as a CRA, say what you want, you're you're playing a very specialized role. You're not a generalist.
well, you do have advantages over, if you take some Joe off the street and say, here, you're gonna open your own site, opposed to a CRA with some
Right.
experience. The CRA should have more insight and do a better job initially, right?
What if Joe's an excellent salesperson?
Well, I mean, there's qualities there that will be beneficial, but the CRA will know more about what's going on, right? There's a much steeper learning curve for Joe opposed to the CRA.
Yeah, of course. But Joe could also hire
Or experienced person.
and then learn
Sure.
the process. The CRA can also do that because they make good money.
Right.
The problem with the CRAs, and we haven't really gotten into it, is typically what makes a good CRA is not what makes a good salesperson.
Probably you're right. I would
Have
say.
you ever met a CRA? We have, but is the default when you see a CRA, oh, this is a great salesperson?
No, they're more rigid.
Yeah.
And a salesperson's typically not rigid.
You see them every now and then.
A salesperson needs to have a chameleon type persona, right? They
Right.
need to be able to. How am I trying to describe this? They need to be able to change.
Adapt quickly.
Thank you. Adapt to the situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas CRA is more rigid and just how do I. What's the answer to this checkbox, right?
Right.
Opposed to, well, the question doesn't even fall in this checkbox, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Right?
So that's usually what happens as a site owner.
Right.
Like, you'll just get an email out of the blue with a 20-page document, which most of it is just the same concepts,
Right.
right? But you, as a CRA, you're freaking out.